But now I don't see those cobbles and curbs. I don't hear the blues anymore.
Rough Trade is giving away a third off the first 3 months of the Rough Trade Club plus new music membership exclusively to 101 Part-Time Jobs listeners. Become a member of Rough Trade Club New Music and you'll receive the Rough Trade Album of the Month straight to your door every month on exclusive vinyl pressing with exclusive bonus material. Club members have received exclusive pressings of albums from Sufjan Stevens, Sprints, The Last Dinner Party, Julie Byrne and Over Mono, just to name a few, this past year alone. Sign up using the promo code CLUB101POD and you'll get the Rough Trade Album of the Month, English Teacher's excellent debut album, This Could Be Texas, on exclusive Galaxy Gold for a third of the usual price. Here's English Teacher on a recent episode of 101.
How many opportunities do you get to write a debut album and have all of this, support behind us? I don't know, I really like the idea of holding the bar as being like classic songs.
You only get one shot at a debut.
Don't want the album of the month but still want all the benefits? Sign up to the standard tier using Club 101 Pod and you'll still get the first month free. You'll also get free shipping on all orders, 10% off the bar and on secondhand vinyl in-store, and exclusive access to sold-out Rough Trade events. So don't hang around. Go to roughtrade.com/club and sign up with the code CLUB101POD. That's CLUB101POD and claim money off the album of the month, English Teachers This Could Be Texas, today. This offer's available to UK residents only. Do you play in bands? I did for the longest time. And I wish that I knew that DistroKid was a thing. I don't even think it existed back then. DistroKid makes music distribution fun and easy with unlimited uploads, and artists keep 100% of your royalties and earnings. 1 million plus artists rely on DistroKid to get their music on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, TikTok, Tidal, Instagram, and all the major streaming services. When you get DistroKid, you can see a DistroKid bank and withdraw your earnings. You get notified when you've earned royalties and you can withdraw via the app. And you can even check your streaming stats on Spotify and Apple. Get 30% off your first year on DistroKid by going to distrokid.com/VIP/101pod. 30% off for your first year. That's not bad. We know it's a tough world out there. Why don't you make it easier for yourself? And to get 30% off that free year as an artist, where you get 100% of your royalties and earnings, go to distrokid.com/VIP/101pod. All right, stay with me. I'll be right back after this.
Hey guys, time to get in on the action for the biggest moments in basketball with Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. Just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projections, place your entry, and win up to 100 times your money. Right now, Prize Picks will match your first deposit of up to $100. Just download the Prize Picks app and use the code GET100. That's code GET100 on Prize Picks for a first deposit match of up to $100. Prize Picks. Pick more. Pick less. It's that easy.
101 part-time jobs, 101 part-time jobs. Hey, you're listening to 101 Part-Time Jobs with me, Giles Bidder. It's the podcast where I speak to bands and artists about building their own world, designing their own lives, and paving their own path in front of them. That all sounds a bit grandiose, doesn't it? But it's true. It doesn't come naturally. These things don't just come towards people, I don't think. They have to work hard and figure out what they're trying to do and put the hours in. And a lot of that means working loads of different side jobs as well, so you can pay rent and survive and live in expensive places like New York City, which is where A Savage calls home. Andrew is also, of course, in Parquet Courts, has had a load of different side jobs, which he talks about on today's episode. His new album, his second solo record, Several Songs About Fire, is out this Friday. Go pick it up. And if you're in England, if you're in London, you can see him at Rough Trade East this Sunday. Cheers for listening to the show. If you like this episode, please subscribe or think about leaving a review or a rating. All of that stuff helps massively. And when you subscribe, you get a little ding every time a new episode comes out. We've got Buck Meek from Big Thief, the people who run So Young magazine, Bombay Bicycle Club, Pip Blom coming up on the show. So when you subscribe, you'll find out immediately when those come out. I've also started a newsletter called P45 RPMs. You can sign up for free at 101parttimejobs.com to get extra interviews, some breakfast recipes, Q&As, personal stories of my own downfall, some negotiations with the past, all of that stuff. Those are coming out on Sunday mornings, so you can spill egg down the front of your white shirts reading that. Sign up at 101parttimejobs.com. Before we get into the episode, I'm going to speak with Rebecca from the band Eka, who's also a brand ambassador for Ampolo, which is a practice at home app. It's getting to the end of wedding season, so if there's anyone out there who's been playing in a wedding band, about to play in a wedding band, and needs to get their chops up on a Paul McCartney bass line where he doesn't play the same thing twice, Ampolo is the app for you.
The one wedding I played as a larger band, I remember I actually messed up my Spotify account because of it. Ampolo would have been a lifesaver.
Yeah, you could hear it back, hear yourself play it, and that probably has, that definitely has that kind of subconscious impact of being like, yeah, I can do that. If I did it then, I can do it again now.
Exactly, yeah. You're not having to run over to your laptop the whole time, set up a new recording channel, all that kind of stuff.
That's Ampolo. It's free. You can download it from the App Store now. Happy practicing. Okay, here's A Savage on 101 Part-Time Jobs. 101 Part-Time Jobs. I don't know. Like, I guess I grew up in like the pop punk generation. So I think even though I wouldn't have said it at the time. I think being a teenager in power pop bands and punk rock bands, I kind of thought. I would never say this out loud. None of our friends would say this out loud. But we kind of thought, I thought one day I'll get signed to a record label and then it'll just be plain sailing.
Right. That's a common perception. It's being an artist is a world where your labor isn't always evident in a way that, your audience might pick up on. I'm interested in like the topic of labor because, you mentioned that, a lot of people haven't worked a job in a long time, but I think, one of the important parts about consuming art is to recognize that a lot of times, well, it is somebody's job. It's always labor, and labor doesn't always have to be like, toiling in misery. It can be an emotional expression but it's still labor, and you're consuming somebody's labor. So it is a job being an artist.
Is this something that you've thought about a lot? That specific thing, for example, right? Tell me if I'm wrong, but what I'm thinking of when you say that is, you might spend 10 hours a day for a whole week and come up with, 3 tunes that you like. And then you might, the next week, you might spend 30 minutes each day and you might come up with 5 tunes that you love.
That's true. I guess the main difference is what I do being an artist and maybe a job where someone, punches a time card is I'm kind of always on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's kind of what it is to be an artist. And there's a lot of jobs I've had where, my alarm clock goes off at 6 a.m. and I'm just like, fuck, I gotta be in this place in an hour and a half. And that's such a warped way to enter the world every day where you're just like, fuck, it's on,
Yeah.
But now sometimes there's something that I envy about that, because for a lot of my employment history, which was vast before being a quote unquote professional artist, all I had to do really was show up somewhere and convince a boss or a superior that I was working hard enough to merit staying at the job,
Yeah.
So it was like, now when I think of it in those terms, I'm like, not so bad, You know, like a lot of my employment was pretty much just that. I've never been fired because I've always been pretty good. Well, like work ethic was something that was really like drilled into me from as long as I can remember. And I started working. Well, I mean, my history of labor begins with like chores, but the first time I punched a time card, I was 15, and I've been working ever since. I haven't been without a job, and I'm including being an artist, since I was 15. And so I've had this sort of sense of maybe not doing my best, but doing the bare minimum for a long time. And so a lot of my employment history has just been kind of being at a place on time, which I can do. I can be pretty reliable with just being at a place on time. And a lot of times I feel like that has helped me. That's been the thin line between being employed and being fired, is people are just like, well, at least he turns up on time, you know?
Yeah.
Once you get there, turn up on time, like, you know, you can like smoke a joint or something and just like kind of coast at a lot of jobs. As long as you're just like, as long as they can see that, you know, you're there when you're supposed to be.
I've had a few jobs where it's really come down to whether the boss likes you or, in my case, doesn't like you.
I had this job once in Denton, Texas, which is where I was born. And it's also where I went to university, you know, so I was a townie. And I had this job, and it was a bunch of us guys that played in bands. And it was a lot of people that I lived with, because I lived in this house with all these, you know, musicians, and we all played in each other's bands. And so we had this job that essentially we were kind of like, not security guards, but for the art buildings on campus, we were like the key holders. And literally all we had to do was sit at a desk and then at like midnight, lock up the buildings, right? But we had to sit at a desk for like, you know, it was, the shifts were long, like, you know, 5 in the afternoon, 4 in the afternoon to midnight. But we would just fuck off and go like have band practice, you know, and then turn back up at midnight and lock the joint up, you know? And so that's like,
and you got away with it.
Yeah, because I was there on time, and when the administrative people left, they saw me, so I was accounted for.
Yeah. And
then at the end of the day, you know, the building gets locked up. So you know, we all kind of realized as long as we were there for those 2 bits, then we'd be good. And I think that's a lot of when you're an artist and you're forced into capitalism, and we're all forced into capitalism, but like, when you're an artist and your life feels like a tug of war between capitalism and making your art, you gravitate towards these jobs that like kind of allow you to fuck off a bit. Yeah,
I mean, you hit the nail on the head of like the spirit of this podcast, the spirit of this show.
Oh, great.
Because that's it. And I think that so many people have this tension, like this internal fucking confusion about how much you should go to a job and try and live in that world, or how much attention to pay to your art.
And especially it's confusing if you are living in an expensive city, which, let's be honest, most cities just are now. And you want to be in that place because there's artists there, cool artists happening. There's a community, but it's also expensive, and you have to pay rent and buy groceries. And so, yeah, that is a direct tension of the life of the artist, because in a very real way, you need to make money to survive, unless you're one of the lucky ones, which, you know, I'm not. You need to make money to survive, but you also need, as a human being, you need space and time to do your art. And so that's why Oh man, I've seen so many, living in a city like New York for 15 years, I've seen so many artists kind of just get swallowed up with working identities until their practice is gone, because it's kind of a one fucked up thing about work these days, especially if you're making above like a certain amount of money, if you've got like a 9 to 5 regular gig. And it's kind of a trick that they played on us slowly over the years until we just kind of woke up and we're like, wait, why is it like this now? People work through the weekend. They're like always on their email. They're always like, a lot of my friends, and these are friends who have like straight jobs, like they're kind of always on. Yeah. Like they always need to be a phone call or email away. And it wasn't like that not so long ago. And now it's like, it's kind of crazy the way that you're expected to be an employee. Whereas, if you, that's why another reason why artists gravitate towards, jobs where you get an actual weekend, like servers, or teachers. I know a lot of artists who are teachers because you have 2 months out of the year where that's just your time,
Yeah. And when those people are working the weekends, like they think they're doing a good thing, you buy into it. The trick's worked. And I've been there. I don't think anyone's immune to that, because you want to impress or do good for your boss, because that creates a better environment when that kind of personality approach is put to it.
Yeah, for sure. It's funny the way that you framed your teenage dream of being a musician. Okay, I'll just get a record deal, and then it'll be easy street from there, right? But what people don't see is like, there's a lot of people working on, let's say, a record or a tour or a festival that aren't on the stage. That's labor, and that's where, let's say you signed a record deal. Great. That's, a lot of the money goes towards paying those people, you're in essence, your coworkers, your comrades, your fellow laborers. So it's, that's one of the interesting things about art, is that there's the perception of it, and then there's a reality of it. And somewhere in that reality and perception, labor gets a little bit blurred, doesn't it?
I know plenty of tour managers or merch people who have gone on for weeks on tours not to get paid anything because they want to be there. And then maybe, at some point they're going to be like, oh, wait, I think I've changed my mind. Maybe I do want to get paid.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's exploitative, and no one should ever do that. I would never not pay anybody that was on a tour with me.
And those are decisions that you make, because even like when you're starting, even in your first bands that are starting to make a bit of money touring, that's a decision you make, right? You're like, okay, we're starting a small business. We take it seriously. We want to have fun and we want to play rock and roll, but you got to be professional about things, because that's looking after folk around you.
Yeah. I guess I was lucky in that I played in bands for years before I made any money off of it, and never did I ever expect to be able to. Like, I would like to tell you that I was super ambitious and had this vision of me being a professional rock and roller or whatever, but that's just not true. But I think that that's important, in that you have to set yourself up by doing this thing because you love it, and it can only really work if you are doing something that you're going to be doing anyway.
I can't imagine Parquet Court started thinking we're going to be huge. And
no.
Hey, put this, on the other shoe, it's like the reason that you're so fun and you're such a party band and you'll sell as many tickets as the Roundhouse in Camden has is because it's subversive. People want to let off steam. People want to party. People want to dance to this slightly off kilter thing that, I mean, I wasn't expecting that after, you know, I was a fan of Teenage Cool Kids. I wasn't.
Oh, were you really?
Yeah, I came to see you in Brighton.
Did you at the something George, the St. George? Is that where it was?
It's the knob piercing one.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. The Prince Albert. That's
Prince
what it
Albert.
was. Yeah. With Algernon. Yeah. Oh,
Exactly.
cool. You were at that.
Yeah, I moved down to Brighton, and I was 18. I went down to do a journalism course at the local paper there, and that was the first. It was like the second night that I lived in Brighton.
No kidding.
And it was awesome. I loved it.
Yeah. No. I mean, no. We definitely didn't start off with dollar signs in our eye for sure.
Yeah.
At a certain point, when we did start playing shows and getting paid for them, it was like, okay, we have to play as many shows as we can in order to cover our rehearsal room, you know. And there was an early stage in the band where we had a rule where we didn't turn down a show. So we played all the time in New York, and we just got very good live that way. And we were loving it. It was an absolute blast.
What kind of, well, actually my first question, your lockup is having a lockup in London. I mean, maybe some people do it. I don't think I know anyone who does it, but was that quite rogue? Was that pretty ballsy to get a lockup in New York?
To get a lockup, and by that, do you mean our rehearsal space?
Exactly, yeah. Because it's pricey and it's a dedication.
Well, this was a different era also when things weren't as pricey. But I mean, a band has to have a place to play. Yeah, it's just kind of essential, really. But oh man, finding one in New York now is like, it's like buying a house. Like, you'll like go look at one, and then someone will be like, and we just rented it, you know?
Yeah, you must have seen Brooklyn change so much. I mean, what were your lives over the sort of the last, I guess, what is it, like 10 years here or say? You know, what was your life like? Obviously, you know, you lived in France more recently. When you were in Brooklyn, in New York, what was your kind of routine like? What was your schedule like? Were you hustling to survive? Were you kind of here, there, and everywhere?
I actually got hired at my first job in the city. The day I moved there, I went on a job interview because I spent every penny I had moving there. And so, I mean, it was really just like, it was a massive leap of faith. And I got hired at a job. I got hired at a shop on Atlantic Avenue in Brooklyn that sold household kitchen stuff. And, you know, that was nice because I worked, you know, 5 days a week and then had 2 days off, and I was young, and so I could go out and go to shows and, you know, be out late and then get 5 hours sleep or less, and then turn up the next day and, you know, give, you know, 60%, you know, and so, and, you know, and then when it's time to go on tour, you quit the job, and then when you get back, you get another one. So I got back from tour and I got a job at a different cookware store because now I'd been trained in all these different cookware products. And so it was a rudimentary skill set that I had. So I went for that. And so that's kind of what it was for the early years in New York for me. And I guess right before, the only like salary job that I've ever had was right before Parquet Courts basically went on tour for the next 10 years.
Did you think for a minute, this is it, I'm a salary jobbed kind of guy?
Yeah, of course. I mean, you know, I guess my life could have gone one or two ways, and I'm really glad that I did make that leap of faith to say, all right, I'm going to quit this very comfortable job.
Yeah.
I mean, I more or less liked. I worked at a warehouse that shipped out art posters. So I was like looking at art all day and
Nice.
and coordinating shipments, which is a skill that was a good one to learn for doing a small record label.
Yeah.
But I switched. I quit, and they were very supportive. They could tell I kind of had my head in the clouds when the band was kind of, getting big. I would sneak off and, do a NME interview on the phone, when I was at the job, which they found a little bit annoying. So they kind of realized, okay, something's happening for him. And so they were supportive. And then, so, yeah, I left that job, and yeah, it was scary, but it was an important thing to do. I imagine if it hadn't worked out, that still would have been the right decision, because at least I would never have wondered, what if.
Yeah. Yeah. Was that tour going to be successful? Did you know that it would be a good tour? I
mean, tour is always pretty fun. So I was in it for the, I was in it for the adventure. But I didn't know that we would make money, which we did. But still, I was just not really thinking about things that way. Yeah. And I couldn't tell you how successful or non-successful it was financially, really. I assume it was successful, but that wasn't what it was about for me.
You're about the adventure. I mean, being an artist, I love your art. Your art it gives such a great feeling. And I've seen bits and bobs across the internet, but I know there's lots that I haven't seen. Have you been consistently drawing and doing that kind of art through the band?
Yeah. I've been an artist, a visual artist, as long as I've been a musician. And it's true, people see the art I do for the band, but that's not entirely reflective of my life I'm a painter, really. That's my preferred, artistic expression. I do stuff like, album layout for the band, and sometimes that involves my paintings. And sometimes I'll do stuff that's more on the graphic end of things, which I think is probably what people know me for visually more, is stuff that's more maybe more on a illustration or graphic end. But I'm a painter, and that's another way that I make my money, is by selling my work, which also is it's another sort of element of the high pressure life of an artist.
Yeah.
I've been selling my work pretty regularly for the past 10 years or so, I guess. But I mean, still, it's, when you're an artist, just like being in a band, you have a studio that, you need to pay rent on. And especially if you're in a city like New York or Paris, renting a studio is like renting a second apartment.
Right.
But again, that's what gives New York artists their energy and edge, is that they are just desperately trying to make ends meet, to keep doing what they do. It's really just all about kind of keeping your head above water and just being able to continue making art, so it's this thing where you're just you're hustling to hustle, basically, and I think that might be a mentality I keep for the rest of my life, because I've just been so indoctrinated in it here. But them's the breaks,
That's it. You gotta make it work.
When I finished that tour that I was talking about, that first Parquet Courts tour, I came back, and my roommate, he was doing this job as a weed delivery guy.
High maintenance.
Exactly right. That's what it was. And that show had just started when when we were doing this job. So he got me that job.
Oh, nice.
Which I did for like the first year and a half or so of the band being, a serious touring band. Because, it's the band has never like fully afforded us to live just off of it in New York. At times it has, but there's always needed to be like another kind of hustle. And so I've always had something like that. And largely it's been visual art, but that was a good one just because, I was riding my bike a lot. I was in good shape.
Yeah.
And I could just leave for a month or two and go do like a festival tour and then come back and pick up. And it was good money too. I mean, it was, the bags were 50. And so we got to keep 10.
Nice.
Yeah. And, doing like, on a Friday or Saturday night, doing 40 bags, it was good money.
How does it work then? Is it like, I don't know, I think of a black cab driver in London. You basically like rent your car. You're hiring your car. When you get that Pelly case full of weed in Brooklyn, how does it work money-wise?
Well, it works like this. They just give you the inventory and you sell as much of it as you can, and you have to, you have to account for it. I was one of the lucky guys who didn't get mugged.
Damn.
But a lot of guys got mugged.
Is that because you're carrying a similar looking kind of case and people started recognizing that if you've got one of those Pelly cases or you're on a bicycle that you might be carrying? Yeah,
people, professional, thieves, like, fellow hustlers, really, like, they know. Like, I would be followed sometimes, and I would realize that someone was following me, and then you try to shake them off. But people can spot you. People see someone and they're like, oh, I wonder if he's doing that. And then they kind of follow them for a little bit, see that they're going from place to place, and they're on a bike. And so I got lucky. I had been followed before, but I was able to shake people off. But sometimes people got everything stolen off of them, right? Fuck. And so then that creates this thing with let's call them management, that, they either have to believe you or trust you that you really did get robbed, because you can just say you got robbed and it's can be like, everything's gone.
That can get murky.
Sure. Yeah. So I never was in that situation. Thank God.
What was it like with the police? Was this when and also what's the feeling now? It probably wasn't legal then, but it is legal now.
Exactly. Well, it's legal now. So it's probably a job that's going to be disappearing soon, but it is a popular path of employment for a certain type of person in New York. Well, now it's like a lot of people, you just deal other types of drugs, right? Like, especially like mushrooms and acid.
Yeah. They're having a comeback.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank God. So yeah, but I know still people who still order from services, but yeah, it wasn't legal then. And it also was scary because it was a time at New York City policing when there was a very controversial policy called stop and frisk, which basically meant that the cops could stop you for whatever reason and just say, hey, I'm gonna search you, which was really fucked. But, I guess I had systemic racism on my side. And I guess that would be like a very evident iteration of white privilege, is that it was mainly leveraged at younger people with black skin, especially younger black men. But there was a reason that it was on bikes, and that during this era in New York, there were people from New York that were there will remember this. during the first like half of that decade, there were all these tables at every metro station with police, and they would just point at you and be like, "Got to see your bag." You could tell them to fuck off because they just wouldn't let you on the train, is what it was.
Okay.
And so you could just like turn around and leave, and there's really nothing they could do about that. But it was scary, so we were on the. That's why we were on the bike. Anyway, so that was a job I did for a little bit. Yeah.
Your parents ran a newspaper, is that right? I read that in the biography for several songs about fire. And
they didn't run a newspaper. They were employed at a newspaper, but no, I don't come from newspaper parents.
I was thinking sort of small independent that would be bought out by the barons.
That sounds like a good story, but it's just not the truth. No, they were employees of a newspaper, the Denton Record Chronicle, in Denton, Texas.
When I read that, I thought it makes so much sense with your lyrics, and just talking about the record for a minute. I mean, several songs about fire. The lyrics are just fucking wild. They're so great to read. You just you step straight into your world. It plunges me into this place. And when you played at the Barfly, it's not called the Barfly anymore. When you played at that place in Camden a few months ago, I was there, and hearing those songs for the first time, so I realized some lyrics had stuck with me from then till now, despite not hearing any of it.
Yeah.
I don't really know what I'm trying to say here, other than I'm a massive fan, and it makes sense that you come from a family that has written.
Thank you for saying that. That means a lot, and I'm glad that you gravitate towards the lyrics, because that's key for me. I kind of I play guitar, so I'm a guitarist. I sing, I'm a singer, but I think before those things, I consider myself a lyricist, and so that's just a big part of it for me, and that's why shows like that show that you saw in Camden are special, because the songs, I think that they should be able to be reduced into a very simple format. I think all songs should be able to do that. And my voice and my lyrics in what I do in Parquet Courts and in A Savage, they're very upfront. It's not like for example, like a My Bloody Valentine record, where the lyrics or the voice is kind of this texture that blends in with other textures, and it just becomes like fabric with the guitars, and it's really kind of beautiful the way like the voice and guitars and everything just kind of blends into this one thing. But that's not like the music I make. Like I like music where, one of my favorite bands of all time, and a band that really opened my eyes as to what it means to be a lyricist, and I'm not alone in this, is The Fall. Yeah. And everything is so separate on those records. The drums and the bass and the voice, they're so distinct and they're so separate. And it's kind of the opposite of like a shoegaze record, to where everything's just kind of like blended together by a generous amount of reverb. And in a band like that, I think it's really important for your lyrics to really have some depth to them, because they're going to be standing front and center on their own, and so that's I think that's a quality with lyricist bands or artists, that the words themselves need to be as important as the music that's behind them.
It really forces you to pay attention in a different way of, you say that the Fool and shoegaze, when you're listening to shoegaze, you're letting it wash over you. It's like you're getting into bed with it. I feel like with the Fool and Marky Smith, I've really got to like pay attention, which doesn't always come naturally, but you got to fucking listen. You've got to try.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, sometimes it just kind of grabs you and forces you to, that's what a good lyric line kind of does, is that it just like, maybe you're maybe you're, I don't know, like folding your laundry or doing dishes, something, and then you hear a line, and then you just have to stop what you're doing and pay attention to it, you know?
Big time. And do you speak to your parents about writing? I mean, and do you think that there's a storytelling aspect that comes from them writing for a newspaper in Denton? Have you had those kind of conversations?
Well, I should be clear. My mother worked at the art department, and so she wasn't writing. And my father was a sports reporter. And so, you know, his writing, you know, was kind of more to do with the data of a game, you know. But so, you know, it's
there is beautiful baseball writing, isn't there? I mean, there's some
I mean,
like Old Man and the Sea stuff in there.
He's a baseball guy, and baseball guys like to talk about baseball like it's ballet, you know what I mean? Like they put it in such lofty language. It's almost, you know, it's hilarious sometimes. But you know, I can't really say how much, you know, writing influence came from that. I mean, other than that, they were both very encouraging. I can't say that, you know, my mother working in the art department of a newspaper exposed me to a lot of just kind of tools of the trade. So, you know, a lot of like stuff that I still use, because my process is still a very non-digital, you know, handmade kind of process. And so, you know, I from going there as a kid, I saw, you know, light boxes and shading film, right, and T-squares and you know, tracing paper and you know, seeing how you know, they would lay out like an advertisement. You know, it's like it was film. You know, and if something was wrong, they would, you know, they would correct it by hand. You know, and it was a skill, and so that played a big influence on like the way I lay out, you know, for example, I lay out a record for print. I was around that kind of like drafting for print environment from a young age. So that was very influential on me, actually.
Yeah, that's cool. That process is very satisfying to hear about and to see.
Yeah, I mean, and now it's sad because I mean, things have changed so much, and it's all, you know, everything is done on screens now, and stuff like Illustrator and Photoshop, which I have a bit of a proficiency in. You kind of have to. Yeah. But I do consider myself, you know, one of the last kind of true draftsmen. Not one of the last, but it is a vanishing art for sure.
Hey, it's Kaylee Cuoco for Priceline. Ready to go to your happy place for a happy price? Well, why didn't you say so? Just download the Priceline app right now and save up to 60% on hotels. So whether it's Cousin Kevin's Kazoo Concert in Kansas City, go Kevin, or Becky's Bachelorette Bash in Bermuda, you never have to miss a trip ever again. So download the Priceline app today. Your savings are waiting.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
Hey, we're running out of time, so I just want to say, you know, thanks so much for being up for doing this, Andrew. It's kind of flown by, hasn't it? And I appreciate you kind of getting into the spirit of the show, of the podcast.
Yeah, I mean, that's just how, you know, when people told me I was doing this interview, that's what they said. You know, be prepared to talk about your jobs. So
that's it, you know. And I mean, to end with, I guess, well, not I guess, one of my favorite things to hear about is people's fuck ups at work, because maybe it's good for, you know, maybe I'm projecting because I've fucked up so much at work. I worked at a radio station on the adverts, and I'd always put them on the wrong dates and direct you to something that's already happened or not happening on the right day. And like, you know, when I worked behind the bar, I'd kind of smash a lot, and I was just kind of, you mentioned it earlier, but being lofty. I'm one of those people, my mind's always kind of been somewhere else. There's always something that I want to do more than the job I've been at, which is, not very special. Lots of people that happen for, but I guess that the thing that comes out of that is making quite a lot of mistakes.
Yeah, sure.
Have you got any, when I say that, what comes to mind? Any kind of mistakes that?
Sure. Yeah. My first job, I was living in Dallas, and I got a job with family friends at this Mexican restaurant called El Rincón del Viejo, and it was owned by some family friends, Ruben and Hortensia, and they hired me, and I spoke a bit of Spanish just because I grew up in Texas, but it was a Spanish speaking job, and so my skills were not native skills, and so that created some difficulty because there's some people there, like in the kitchen, that only spoke Spanish, so I had to navigate around that. But I was a bus boy / I was too young to be a waiter, but I did that anyway just because it was a small mom and pop operation. But I broke shit all the time, like every day. I broke whole trays of glasses. And I was like a family friend, and so they liked me, but they were just like, this kid is fucking useless. Like, he shows up on time, but like, goddamn, if he can't get through like a 4-hour shift without like breaking a tray of plates and bowls and shit. And so like eventually I just like stopped turning up. And I was just out with my friends one day, and they were like, don't you have to work? And I was like, I'm not going anymore. And then I didn't go for a month. And then I came back in like a month later and told them I quit. And they were like, all right, yeah, cool. Yeah, you quit. Like when I stopped turning up, they weren't like, where are you? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Hey, that's a test of character in yourself, right? You can learn a bit of humility, learn a bit of personal growth, maybe.
Yeah,
because it's that stuff, like whether it's embarrassing, whether you want it to be embarrassing or not, it can kind of cut through, right? It's quite easy to be, and I've been there so many times, quite easily to think, fuck, I'm a useless human being.
Yeah. I mean, if anybody's listening to this that owns a bar, do not hire me, because I will put you in the business by breaking everything in there.
Great. Hey, Andrew, thanks so much for being up for this. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks a million, Giles. When does this air, by the way?
The record's out.
It's October 6th it comes out.
Yeah, I'll put it in that week. Is that good? Does that work?
Well, if it's before October 8th, maybe I could have a chance to tell people that I'm playing 2 shows in London on the 8th at Rough Trade West and Rough Trade East.
Yes.
And then the next day in Bristol at the Rough Trade shop there. So
excellent.
If you want to come see me and get the record, that'll be the first chance for anyone to get the record, I think.
Fucking brilliant. And you made the record down in Bristol as well, didn't you, with Kate Le Bon?
True, yeah.
Kate Le Bon is just incredible. That must have been such a brilliant experience.
She's fantastic. I mean, I should say that John Parrish produced it, but Kate played keys, as well as a lot of other brilliant musicians. But yeah, it was a fantastic band, and I was around wonderful, truly talented people while making it, which always helps.
Great stuff. Ewan lives just up the road from me. I've met him a few times. He's lovely. Pinnacle man. Hey, thank you so much. And, have a great trip. Have some great gigs. This record is excellent. I can't wait to listen. I'm going to listen to it again now. All right, Giles. Have a good one, man. Thank you. What a gentleman. A Savage. Several Songs About Fire is out tomorrow. You can go catch him at Rough Trade East if you're in London this Sunday. And then I'm sure he'll be on tour after that. So go to his website and find out those dates. Cheers for listening. Really enjoyed that. This is good fun. I'll be back soon with episodes with Buck Meek, Bombay Bicycle Club, Jack Steadman there, the folks at So Young Magazine, Oscar Brown, Pip Blom, loads of great stuff. So if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe. It's just one click on Apple or Spotify, or wherever you're listening to this. If you want to go any further than that, you can leave a review or a rating and profess your undying love for chats about jobs. All right, see you again soon. Cheers.
Hey guys, it is Ryan. I'm not sure if you know this about me, but I'm a bit of a fun fanatic when I can. I like to work, but I like fun too. It's a thing. And now the truth is out there. I can tell you about my favorite place to have fun. Chumba Casino. They have hundreds of social casino style games to choose from with new games released each week. You can play for free anytime, anywhere. And each day brings a new chance to collect daily bonuses. So join me in the fun. Sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.